Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a topic that's been buzzing all over the news lately: the new federal rules aimed at conserving water from the Colorado River. Now, this might sound like a distant, regional issue, but trust me, it's a story with huge implications for millions of people, the food we eat, and even the power we use. So, grab a glass of water while you still can. Just kidding. Mostly, and let's break down what's happening. First, a quick geography lesson. The Colorado River is the lifeblood of the American Southwest. It snakes its way through 7 states: Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and California, and even crosses into Mexico. Over 40 million people rely on this river for their drinking water. It irrigates millions of acres of farmland that grow a significant portion of the nation's winter vegetables. And it powers massive hydroelectric dams like the Hoover Dam and Glen Canyon Dam, providing electricity to major cities. So, what's the problem? Well, for the last 2 decades, the region has been in the grip of what scientists call a megadrought, intensified by climate change. Less snow is falling in the Rocky Mountains, which is the river's primary source. This means less snowmelt to feed the river each spring. At the same time, demand for water has only grown as the population in the Southwest has boomed. This has led to a critical situation. The 2 largest reservoirs in the entire country, Lake Mead and Lake Powell, which act as the system's main storage tanks, have dropped to historic lows. You've probably seen the pictures. The stark white bathtub rings on the canyon walls, showing just how far the water levels have fallen. If they drop too low, it could trigger a dead pool scenario, where the water level is too low to flow downstream from the dams, cutting off water supplies and halting power generation. It's a doomsday scenario that was once unthinkable but is now a very real possibility. For years, the states have been trying to agree on how to cut back their water usage, but it's been a tough negotiation. Each state has its own rights to the water, based on a complex system of laws over 100 years old, often called the Law of the River. But these laws were created during an unusually wet period in the early 20th century, and they promised more water than the river can actually provide in a normal or dry year. It's like everyone has a ticket for a seat on a plane, but the plane is much smaller than they thought. This is where the federal government stepped in. Seeing the states struggle to reach a consensus, the Department of the Interior recently announced a new plan. It's a historic move that, for the first time, forces mandatory water cuts on the lower basin states, Arizona, Nevada, and California. Let's talk about what this plan actually does. The new rules are designed to protect the system from collapsing. The cuts will be triggered based on the water levels at Lake Mead. The lower the lake gets, the deeper the cuts. Arizona will face the largest reductions, primarily because of its junior water rights compared to California. This will have a huge impact on farmers in central Arizona, many of whom have already had too fallow fields and switched to less water-intensive crops. Nevada, which gets about 90% of its water from the Colorado River for the Las Vegas area, will also see significant cuts. However, Southern Nevada has been a leader in water conservation for years, implementing aggressive programs like paying people to remove their grass lawns. They've actually managed to reduce their overall water consumption even as their population has grown. California, the biggest user of the river's water, will also face cuts for the first time under these new federal mandates, though they are less severe than Arizona's. A lot of this water goes to the Imperial Valley, a massive agricultural region that produces a huge amount of the country's produce, especially in the winter. So, these cuts could eventually be felt in grocery stores across the country through higher food prices. Now, the plan isn't just about cuts. The federal government is also pouring billions of dollars into the system, thanks to the recent Inflation Reduction Act. This money is intended to help ease the pain. It will go toward paying farmers to temporarily use less water, funding efficiency upgrades in cities, and investing in new technologies like water recycling and desalination. The idea is to compensate users for their conservation efforts, making the reductions more palatable and economically viable. The reaction to this announcement has been mixed, as you can imagine. Some see it as a necessary, if painful, step to save the river from a complete catastrophe. They argue that voluntary measures just weren't working fast enough and that federal action was the only way to break the stalemate between the states. Water managers in some cities have said this provides the certainty they need to plan for a future with less water. On the other hand, many in the agricultural community are deeply concerned. They feel they are bearing the brunt of the cuts and that their livelihoods are at risk. They argue that they are producing essential food for the nation and that taking farmland out of production has its own set of consequences. There's a real fear that this could fundamentally change the landscape of farming in the West. Environmental groups have also weighed in. While many support the conservation measures, they also point out that this is a short-term fix. They are pushing for a long-term rethinking of how we live in the desert. They want to see more fundamental changes, like halting sprawling new developments and reevaluating which crops are grown in an arid environment. The goal, they say, should be to create a sustainable balance, not just lurch from one crisis to the next. So, what happens next? These new rules are set to guide water management for the next few years. But this is really just a bridge to a much bigger negotiation. The current guidelines for managing the river expire at the end of 2026. So, all 7 states, along with tribal nations and Mexico, have to go back to the drawing board and come up with a brand new set of rules for how to share the river in a hotter, drier future. The big question everyone is asking is, can we adapt? This crisis is forcing a major reckoning in the American West. It's about more than just water. It's about how we grow, how we build our cities, and how we value this precious resource. It's a massive challenge, but it's also an opportunity for innovation. We're seeing cities get serious about recycling wastewater. Farmers adopt ultra-efficient irrigation, and a new public awareness about conservation. This story is far from over. The decisions made in the next few years will shape the future of the Southwest for generations. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, but it's one we all have a stake in. What do you think? Are these federal cuts the right move? What other solutions should we be looking at? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the stories shaping our world. We'll be following the Colorado River situation closely, so stay tuned for updates. See you in the next one.